Help them figure what they want out of life. But you know everything it come with a price. Want to maximize your money and time. Might have to take the uncommon advice.
So let's jump into trends.
Oh, let's do this.
Let's jump into trends. That's behind the marketing. We're going to jump into trends here where we go over some different topics that are kind of going on in the world currently.
Yeah, absolutely. And one big one right now that I will go into is actually in my sports again. We're bringing sports back, but it's what's happened in the last week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, with all these coaches after in the NBA after a bad series or a tight series being fired due to performance. Just some example: Milwaukee Bucks. Budenholzer was fired after a 4-1 to the number 8 seed Miami Heat. Whoop whoop. But they were the best team in the NBA before that. And the same thing with Monty Williams and Doc Rivers, coaches who have put some big input, I would say, in that the organizations they were fired from.
Yeah, they're winning coaches. Their teams have performed at a high level, but their teams haven't gotten over the hump where they need to go.
Absolutely.
And I think the thing is where it comes down to is evolving. Not only in sports, like we talk about the coaches here, but coaching is in business. There's a direct correlation in business as well. You have to be evolving in your business. You have to be getting better and better, else you will not win the long game. You have to be constantly competing at a high level inside of business. You have to be focusing on how do I get better? What skills who do I need to become to build the company that I want, right?
Correct.
So if there's a life that I know that I want, that I'm trying to achieve, and I'm not there yet, who do I need to become to get to where I want to be? And I think what happens is a lot of times in business, people get very stagnant. And frankly, I speak from experience. I mean, when I had my agency for years before we decided to build everything in-house and rebrand into Marketing Rebels, start building our own media properties. When I had that agency, I was stagnant for 3 years. We had zero growth. We just stayed stagnant on revenue. We had zero growth. We weren't really reinventing anything game-changing. So we weren't inventing anything new or crazy, but we were performing, but we weren't growing. So and frankly, it becomes, as a business owner, it's very challenging not to grow. As an entrepreneur or a high performer, something that makes us better is constantly growing. And if we don't, we get stagnant, we get complacent, and then that things can go downhill, right? Next thing you know, you're fired.
Yeah, so going into that, so what would you say to the ones that come back and they'll make excuses, right? And some excuses are valid. Some are get over it kind of excuses. But if they come at you and they're telling you, I don't have the tools or I don't have the things that I need or that I want to be able to get the job done, what can they do to overcome that? Is that really their fault, or is that the upper more people, or yeah? So
I don't know. I mean, I guess one thing my dad always told me when I was growing up: excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So
that's true.
So you can either make excuses for your lot in life, or you can get off your butt and get stuff done. So, here's a story of mine. When I went in 2008, I lost everything, belly up, bankrupt. And I had to, at that moment, I lost completely everything. I had millions of dollars on paper that I was worth, lost it all when the market shifted, ended up filing bankruptcy, losing absolutely everything, sitting in a condo, counting change with a mice problem in my condo, right? So I'll never forget that mice running across the floor in front of me. And I'm like, man, how can I went from like thinking I was, king dingling on top to like down on the bottom doing absolutely,
counting pennies.
And I had one option at that moment: blame all the other people for the things that I didn't accomplish, or blame all the other people for the things that I didn't do, or blame all the other people for the bad decisions I made, or take ownership and accountability and actually change those, right? So you got one, it's your choice. So you can either blame people or you can do what you need to do to move forward. And if you want to get better and you're being stagnant, there's a plethora of YouTube content. There's a plethora of information out there that you can go gain the knowledge that you need to become who you need to become, right?
Yeah, it's the pointing finger game, huh? So it's like, nah, it's not my problem or it's not my fault. But at the end of the day, if you're the head of the snake and your company's sinking, it's it was your fault. It's the reason it went downhill. So.
Yep.
So guys, keep evolving, keep getting better. Like Nate said, don't stagger. Just because even if you have a really good year, you had the best year of your life, financially, physically, everything, it doesn't mean that it can't go away, or it doesn't mean that you should stop. You got to keep getting better, because that's how you're going to keep growing until you have billions in your bank account, and then you can stop. Yeah.
Yeah, and to get back, and even then, those guys don't. So,
Look at all the successful people. They keep
trying
going.
to create more change. They're trying to have positive impact, right? So a question of, should leaders be blamed for failures? Absolutely. Now, because at the end of the day, it's, even if someone below you made a bad decision that caused it to fail, as a leader, that's on you, because you're the one who hired them. You're the one who trained them, or you put people in place to train them. And if they are not meeting the expectations of where you need to go, and it's causing your team to fail, that's on you, because you have to either replace that person to make sure that you have the right person in the right seat, or, so at the end of the day, it's always to you. People always say, what, shit rolls downhill? It actually rolls uphill. So, because at the end of the day, the people that are working with you may be making mistakes, but if you're not helping them correct it and get better,
Absolutely.
that's you failing as a leader.
Correct them, or giving them the correct tools, or
Tools,
giving them
resources,
the resources
knowledge.
to get it done.
And
You'll see a lot of people. Actually, I ran this in before, when I used to work with State Farm. You'll see that they would do this. It's like, okay, how do we do this? And nobody walked you through. And you would think with a big company like that, you think processes, procedures are set in place, but there wasn't. There wasn't processes, there wasn't procedures set in place, and everything was basically, you got to learn it, or you were asking a ton of questions on how to learn it. And I always thought like I was failing, because I didn't think I was doing the right things, but I wasn't the only one. I saw people come in, and the same things were happening to them. Like, they were doing the same thing where I was when I started. So it comes down, like you said, the top is as important as the bottom, or even more important. People always, when you become a business owner, you got workers, they can do it for you, but that's not the case. Yeah. You got to keep supporting and giving them the correct tools and resources to succeed.
You want to lead from the front.
Exactly.
Not pushing and cracking the whip from the back.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's
well, let's jump into the next one, right? Because this one, so the whole point of the trending is we're going to jump into a couple of topics, like Nick said, and our next topic is actually one that I found really funny, because if you guys watch the video, he pauses for a good, I would probably give 5 or 10 seconds where he pauses and he's staring into blank space before he gives his answer. But last night, when this comes out a week ago, Elon Musk will did an interview with CNBC. And they were talking to him. It was after the whole Tesla big meeting, the roundtable they did. And they were asking him, do you think the things you say or tweet about, does it affect your company, or does it make your investors upset? He's like, I don't care. I don't care if I lose money. Freedom of speech. So Nate, in being in a big position like that, in an ownership, I think he's big enough where it probably won't impact too much. But someone who's more in the mid-sized to small-sized businesses that does make a tweet that can affect, do you think the freedom of speech, or do you think they should be considering I shouldn't do this, even though his thoughts those are his thoughts?
So you have the ability. I think you've got the ability for freedom of speech.
Correct.
But that doesn't protect you from the wrath of being an asshole. Right? You have the ability of freedom of speech, but if you're going, and I don't think Elon Musk has done this with stuff he said, but there's people who go out there and say some crazy things and attack people and verbally assault people, and they're like, well, freedom of speech. I'm like, yeah, you do have freedom of speech, but you also should just
not say it.
You don't have to be mean to people either.
Correct.
Right? So I think it depends on what it's doing. And in regards to the business front, I think there is some, you do have to think about what you're going to say. And that comes down to, what company are you? Who's your customer? Right? And we talked about this on a previous podcast, right? Alienation versus, alienation in response to inclusivity with Bud Light.
Yeah.
So I think there's a time and a place, but you have to know who your customer is, how you're speaking to them. and understand that if you say some things that are going to ruffle the feathers, and which is okay, right? Because not everyone's going to love you.
Correct.
But at the same time, too, if you're going to go out of your way to just say crazy things just to get attention, then expect the repercussions of it.
Correct.
You know, so in a business, you still got to be smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to just go say whatever you want off the cuff and then go, oh, my bad, didn't mean it. Because in today's social world, it don't work that way. That's going to be chopped up 6-7 different ways.
Exactly. Well, I mean, things have changed from when you were a business owner back in 2008 and stuff to now. It's like now you
old?
say, no.
It was 2002 was when I started. But
Oh, 2002. But back in the day, you would be able to say something and you won't have what's been going around for the last probably, I'd say, 4 or 5 years with this cancel culture where someone could make a mistake, right? Mistakes do happen. They could say something by mistake or something can slip out that they didn't mean to say it, or maybe it just crossed real quick of something and they get canceled. They get I saw it happen with, I always go back to sports because sports is something I follow a lot, but it happened to an NBA player where he was playing online a video game and he said something in a Call of Duty. He said something and he got canceled. Like he got off the team. It was dropped. Endorsement deals were dropped just of something he said. And I think it was towards the Jewish community. And
don't be attacking the Jewish community.
Well,
man. Don't say stupid stuff.
He came back. He came back to it and he talked about like he didn't mean it. Like it's not something he meant. It's just like he was just playing the game and it slipped out. So nowadays, even slipping out can cost you big time. Just because, I mean, social media, when you put on social media, you might hit delete, but doesn't mean it goes away.
Yeah.
Someone's screenshotting that as soon as it's going online.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's insane. You can look at the John Moran situation of what's going on there, right? That's another one. But I do think, so the thing is, like, should high-profile people, and let's flip this over to celebrities, because celebrities say a lot of things, and I think the problem is people care too much what celebrities say.
That's true.
I could care less what they have to say.
Yeah.
Like, I can't identify with what some of these celebrities do and go through and everything else, but for some odd reason, man, there's so many people that actually are like, and you'll see the media do it too. It's like, well, so-and-so said this. I don't care. Like, how does that impact my life? So I think, at the same time, too, not only should you be cautious on what you say if you're a business owner, but you should also be cautious on the people you listen to and the opinions and the words that you care to hear from other people, right? Mm-hmm. So it works both ways.
Because it's different lifestyles, right? It's usually those celebrities are people who do have the millions, and their problems are completely different problems. So they could have said something, and it's completely different context of what you're thinking of. Mm-hmm. So, and the media, you say something, they'll chop up, like you said, boom, 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 and they'll make a brand new sentence.
Yeah.
And they'll change it up. So, yeah, so that's so we got there. But the next topic is actually something, Nate, that we can discuss, and I'm going to ask you this question first. And it's on mental health. I think mental health, it's being more and more talked about nowadays. More and more people are opened up about it, from athletes to celebrities to business owners. From you growing in the business standpoint, in 2002, you started your business. From that point till now, what has helped you as a business owner mentally? Because you like you said, you went through ups, you went through great highs and very down lows. So mentally, how did you get through that? Like,
yeah, I think one, I've never been extremely emotional up and down. I've always been kind of even keel, and that's how I operate. This is me excited. This is me angry. So I think I've done that. But more importantly, one thing that I do, just a recent example, I came into the office on Monday, and I was irritable. I was edgy. I was short-answered. And I knew I was doing it. And the reason being is I hadn't done what I normally do, which helps me with that mentally, is I hadn't worked out in like 4 days because I was so busy with everything else took precedent. And I just didn't get the time to work it in. So I went in Monday. I got my workout in. I felt better. I got up Tuesday morning. I went for it. I had to start back up my morning walk and think. So I get up in the mornings. I go for a 45-minute walk. I get some steps in, get some thinking time in. And it helps me. Every day I do that is always a better day. And so I got back into that routine just this week. So when I'm coming into the office and I'm getting things done, I'm thinking clear. I've been able to think through big problems. I've been able to take time to just be creative. People talk about your, having meditation time, right? Mm-hmm. That's my meditation time.
So taking it back real quick to this walk and think, when you're walking, what are the things you're thinking? Is it more like Is it more job related? Is it more life related? Is it a mixture of everything? Well, what are you thinking?
It depends on what's going on. Today it started with how mad I was about an email I got. And and I was frustrated about it, and I'm like, why am I so mad about this? And then I'm like, all right, well, here's how I'm gonna handle it, and I start figuring out going forward. All right, here's the steps, problem solved. All right, move on. So I think then there's days where I wake up and I'm trying to think through, or I'm just trying to think big of like, hey, we've got this new sports bread. Like, what's the real vision with it? What's our vision? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna do with it? And so sometimes it's my mind starts thinking about just the very little things that don't make a big difference in your day to day, or things that bother me. But by the end of my walk, I've moved into creative mode. I've moved into thinking bigger. I've moved to solution oriented and excited to start the day. But the days that I don't do that walk and talk, so I'm basically walking and talking to myself. But
do you struggle?
Walk and think. Walk and think.
Do you struggle on the days you don't do it? Like,
so
do you hit like a mental block when you get into the office where you're like, how do I get started, or what do I do, or what are my priorities today?
So I usually have my priorities kind of outlined.
Okay.
But what'll happen is my attitude sometimes will be impacted.
Gotcha.
So I'm either coming in with a mindset of like frustration or chaos if I didn't get my time in, or a little more scattered and not as focused. Or when I get my walk and think in, I've thought through what's going to happen, so I come in a little bit more dialed in, right?
Yeah, and I noticed it because the other day I gave you a call in the afternoon. He's like, yeah, I just got out of the gym. I needed that. I haven't been to the gym 4 or 5 days. You were telling me. But yeah, that's – and similar, I talked to you about yesterday with me. I walk in here and I got frustrated. I'm talking about clenching my fist in the office. I was like, what do? I got was anxious. Like I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what to do. And I had to literally come out here. We have a big area here in our office where we have a table and couches, and I sat down with the notebook and I just wrote whatever came into mind. Like,
I thought you were snoring.
No, I didn't take a nap. I didn't take a nap yesterday, but I just wrote literally anything that came to mind, because it helps me. I find it very satisfying when I have things to do and I can put it on a checklist. And I can see that scratch off. And I was telling you yesterday, I can see the scratch off. Even if there's things that I forgot to put on the checklist, I write them down after I do them, and I scratch it off. Just because it's like a motivation, satisfaction that, okay, I'm getting things done. Where if I didn't do that yesterday, I probably wouldn't have gone and done. After I did that, I probably killed 4 or 5 things that were on my list. If I didn't do that, I probably would have done maybe 1 or 2 things. Mm-hmm. Just because I was so frustrated on I didn't know where to start. Like everything, like my emails are going off. I have Slack going off. I have Skype going off. So everything's going off, and it's like, wait, where do I go? Yeah. So that definitely helped me. And one thing that helps me too mentally is actually coaching. Coaching for me is nobody bothers me. I feel like when I'm coaching, I'm coaching the sport I love. I'm helping, giving back to the community, but nobody bothers me. Like when I'm coaching, it's me and the kids, and that's it. And the kids are very respectful. They respect me. I respect the kids, and we're in our zone. And I just feel like that just helps my mindset. Like I go sleep at night before I'm coaching a tournament, and I think about, I got to coach tomorrow. It's like my relax time. Like I get to do my own thing. And same thing when I'm not coaching. I find a sport. Like this summer, I got Ashton to sign up for it because Nate said he would be dunking on us if he were to play. But we signed up for a rec basketball league just to keep my mindset of sports.
7-foot rims, right?
Yeah, exactly. But sports has always been something that's kept my mindset off of things. Like when I'm doing sports, I'm not thinking about anything else. When I'm doing sports, it's sports. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's always helped me is sports has helped a lot, and even in school. Yeah. In school, sports was big for me to get through things. So I thank sport for a lot of it, but
yeah, it's that activity, right? Yeah, so it's kind of how I should have an outlet, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of a way to deal with some of that stuff, especially an entrepreneur. There's a lot of moving stuff, and being a high performer in our company like you are, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving pieces. You got to have something that you can have an outlet that you can kind of just take your mind off it. Another thing that I do to sometimes when I get out of here, if I've just been thinking and getting a lot, just brains rattled, I just crank the music. Crank the music in the car.
I can see Nate. I like it when you call me Big Pop.
Hey.
With the windows down. You got the hydraulics?
So sometimes it's rap, sometimes it's hip hop, sometimes it's country. Depends on the day.
Well, I've been in the
Sometimes
car
it's AFI back in the day, you know, like I might be listening to some of that. So it just really depends on, I've got different mixes of just different genres, and depending how the day's going, depends what music gets cranked.
I got into the car with you, and you had you also are big with podcasts. Does that give you like a spark on your day on thinking like that podcast? Oh, that's a good idea. Or does that also help you with the spark on your way?
Yeah,
to
so
the
I like
office?
I like listening to podcasts too. I usually do that stuff in the morning.
Correct.
So I listen to, if I'm listening to the radio, I'm listening to K-Love, the Christian music station, and then
I've heard some Katy Perry in there.
it's good music. So I listen to that, or I'll have a podcast on, and the podcast is usually learning, kind of understand, just kind of trying to understand how some of these people are thinking, some of the things that are going on. And sometimes I got to take a break though, because it's like information overload. But a lot of times it's really it does get creative juices flowing, listening to podcasts, and I'm always trying to learn something or understand something or have, spark ideas. So I would say, yeah, it's usually for that. One thing I started doing recently is, I drive my son to school every day. And so I started putting on a podcast, and the one I'm listening to is put on with him as Founders. And it's a guy who reads books about all these different, successful entrepreneurs and business people. And then he summarizes these biographies or autobiographies and biographies into a podcast. And so I've been listening, instead of having like music playing in the car, I now have those playing in the car, and it's interesting to see him listening and then ask questions and actually see he's engaged in it. So I've been doing that as well.
So for someone who has success, right, we're talking about business owners, right? There's business owners who are getting there. They're trying to grow their business to be successful. But someone who's been successful with you, with money, having a awesome family, all that. But they say the more success you have, the more problem, the more success, more money, more problems, correct? So how in that mindset, right, mentally, did that ever play a role with you? The more the money came in, was it more thrown out, or?
Yeah, but I had my times with that
Mm-hmm.
in the past where I, spending it as fast as it's coming in, didn't matter how much was coming in. So I've done that. I think it's one of those though, where when it comes to money, I think they say more money, more problems. I think you make more money because you solve bigger problems. Right. So it's a different way of looking at it. So the bigger the problems you solve, the bigger things that you do, yes, they are bigger problems, but you're getting rewarded at a higher level for that.
Gotcha.
So in regards to more money, more problems, what it means is solving bigger problems make more money. And so I think that, is important. But on the money front too, like if money also just amplifies personality. So a lot of times if you're not a good person, and now you gain millions and millions of dollars, you don't instantly become a good person, right? You just got it. Your personality just gets amplified. And the same thing, if you have a heart and intention of serving. For example, we were talking this morning in my group of serving. You're not a leader because you're on top. You're a leader through You're a leader through serving, right? Servers become leaders. And so I think if you have intention of serving people, the more money that you make, the more you will be able to serve and help and provide, right? So I think your personality gets amplified with the money. And so, it's kind of a different answer to your question, but, absolutely, there's different ways you can go in the whole money conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear from some of the mental health of a business owner, right?
This might have to take the uncommon advice.